being held at gunpoint, seeing my mother held at gunpoint, going through all that trauma was just, intense, but it was over in 12 hours. For the next 9 months, I was considered a suspect. I was, dragged in front of a grand jury. The FBI was after me. The police were after me. Everybody was convinced I was guilty. And then, like I said, 9 months later, I think it was December 1st, when the FBI came to my office and told me the news that they'd caught 2 people down in North Carolina. And I think his exact words were, "There's overwhelming evidence connecting them to you." And I looked at the guy and said, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "There's overwhelming evidence connecting them to you." And I'm like, "Does that mean I'm exonerated?" And he looked at me and he said, "Yes." He goes, "You are completely exonerated." And that was the biggest weight you could ever imagine. After they left, actually, I was in my office and I actually just broke down and cried because it was just such a weight that was lifted off me.
And it's so crazy to hear that because of what you went through in February.
Right, yeah.
Can you talk us through a little summary of, for people who haven't heard what you dealt with? I mean, they followed you home after hockey.
Yeah, I'd played hockey that night, driven home. My normal routine was to pull into my driveway, take the equipment out of my car, bring it into the garage. I do that. As I'm coming back to the car to pull it back into the garage, I see a guy running down the driveway yelling, "Police, police, get on the ground." I knew right away he wasn't a cop. I could tell by the way he was dressed. And pretty quickly I realized that I was going to be a victim of a home invasion. At the time I thought it was just a robbery. I figured, they were waiting in the neighborhood, and I just happened to be the unlucky guy who came home late that night. Turned out that it was a lot more than that.
And it was a long hold until they made you head to the bank?
Yeah, it was literally, it was, they got me at midnight, and at around 8 o'clock or so is when they left the house. So for 8 hours they were in the house, terrorizing me, terrorizing my mother, all so that they could get money and get me to give it to them. And I drove to the credit union that morning, and I'd convinced them to let me call my boss. I had lied to them and took a chance that so I could alert somebody. I didn't want to try to have to do this on my own, so they allowed me to call my boss. I called him. He was smart enough to call the police right away, and they were there waiting for me when I arrived, which actually was twice as scary because the guys told me that if anything happened, they had strapped what they told me was an explosive device to my chest, and they told me if they saw police or anything, they would detonate it and kill me. And there's no bigger fear than when you pull into the parking lot and you're surrounded by police and you're wearing an explosive device and you think it's going to go off. And then they told me it was on a timer, and that if at 11 o'clock, if I hadn't given them all their money, they were going to detonate the device just remotely. So longest minute of my life was sitting there when I'm looking at my phone and it's saying 10:59 and you think you've got 1 minute to live. That was pretty awful.
And then they never got any money.
Nope, they never got anything, which, I'm very glad. I tell people all the time, the things I'm most happy for that night was my mother was safe, I was safe, my staff was safe, and they got no money. They accomplished nothing after my crime. The thing I'm most disappointed about was because they weren't caught up here, they were able to go to Tennessee and terrorize 3 other families, which to this day bothers me that, what could I have done different? What could the police here have done different? Just so that these guys maybe could have been caught before they ended up doing what they did down in Tennessee.
Did you see their faces when they were?
I saw nothing. All I saw of one guy all night, I caught just a glimpse of his wrist. He had moved in a way that he exposed about an inch of his wrist, so I knew that he was white and he was hairy. He had hair on his arms, but that's about all I saw of them all night long.
Ugh, and that exoneration and under conviction, that has to be like a new start for you?
Well, it's funny. The first guy, the one guy rolled over. He pled guilty, took everything. That was the following, I believe, February 16, he pled guilty. I thought it was done until I realized then that the other guy wasn't going to take the plea deal, went to trial. So then the trial happens. the FBI did not have me go down there. They told me they had enough evidence from Tennessee that they didn't need me down there, but the FBI down there was fantastic. They kept me in the loop. They called me all the time, let me know what was going on, how the trial was going. And then I was actually the first call that they made after he was convicted. When he was convicted of the 24, 26 counts, whatever it was, they got on the phone right away with me to let me know and told me that the jury did not take long to convict him. They literally convicted him in just a couple hours.
And was there a sigh, a cheer? What was your reaction at that point?
At that point, I was just high-fiving people at work because I was actually at work, and I was so excited that I couldn't believe that, they got him that quick. Because, like I said, you're always worried about how long will a jury actually convict him, how many years will he get, and then to find out he got 4 consecutive life terms plus 175 years. So I'm pretty happy that he'll never see the light of day, and I don't think I will ever run into him again. The other guy got 32 or 35 years, and in federal prison there's no parole, so he's going to be an old man by the time he gets out. So pretty happy about the outcome.
And you said you shared the story because you share what happened because it helps you, but you're also you're still at the same bank.
Still at the same credit union.
You're
Yep.
going and talking at banks. So what
Yep.
do you tell people
I actually go to do security training for some institutions, and I tell them the importance of paying attention. And I believe that my security training, and I've been in banking all of my life. I've done security for a lot of that portion. So because I've done so much training and I've gotten so much training, I believed it helped me that night. The first thing I thought of, and I still find it odd that one of the very first thoughts I had after I realized this was going to be a home invasion was, what was the guy wearing? Well, pay attention to details. Know what you're going to tell people the next day. And then the next day when the police asked me, I had like 5 pages of detailed stuff that I tried to remember all night. Of course, it kind of hurt me in the end because they said it was too much detail and that normal people don't remember that kind of stuff. But because I'd had so much training and everything, I did, and that kind of made me a suspect right away.
It's almost the double-edged sword,
right? Exactly.
And you said to me that the FBI in Tennessee apologized, but have you ever heard anything from people here?
I have never received an apology from New Britain Police, Bristol Police, or the Connecticut FBI. I have never gotten anything from them.
Does that bother you?
Oh yes, it bothers me immensely. For what they put me through and what I had to go through, for me not to even get some kind of acknowledgement that, hey, we're sorry. And to be honest, I know they were doing their job and I know they had a job to do, but after all is said and done, I thought I deserved an apology.
Changed your, not even that day, but then months later, changed your course of your life.
Oh yeah. Literally, here I was thinking that I could lose my job, my home, I might go to jail over all this. It was like that. I don't think I'll ever be the same. I don't, I consider myself okay with what happened and the trauma of everything, but still, things are different now than they were 4 years ago.
But still want to live here and be in Connecticut.
Oh yeah, this is my home. I've lived here all my life. I've lived in Bristol pretty much all my life. Yeah, I wasn't going to let those guys win. I told people all the time, the whole night, I kept thinking of things to put me in control. I wasn't going to let them beat me. One of the things that during the night, they had told me to kiss my mother goodbye, and I refused to do so. And because I knew it was a scare tactic, and they wanted me to think that this was the end or whatever, and I absolutely refused. I wouldn't give in to them. And, 4 years later, and I still don't want to give in to them. I'm not giving them the satisfaction of making me scared. I don't look over my shoulder now. I'm a little more careful because the thing that bothers me too is that they stalked me for a couple weeks or whatever to get my routine and everything. I was lax. I'm not that lax anymore. I pay a little more attention, but it's not like I'm nervous now. I just pay more attention to what's going on around me.
And something that your neighbors and folks in Connecticut should do.
Oh, yes, exactly. Like I said, and especially, everybody thinks, oh, this won't happen to you. You know what? I'm proof it does. I mean, you watch the news all the time. There's bad stuff happens to people all the time, and we just all think, oh, it's somewhere else. It'll never hit us here, and you know what? It does. And and that's the message I do in my training and everything is, don't think it can't happen, because it can.